Hey everyone, and welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where our first post is a short and sweet one by user/Astan. This is just slight malicious compliance, but it makes me smile. A few years ago, I worked in the kitchen in a small restaurant. One particular waitress was quite annoying. The special snowflake type. She often tried to tell us how to do our job, so she was rather disliked by the cooks. One day, she decided she will no longer eat gluten. There was no health reason for this, and wants gluten-free staff meals. We had no gluten-free options in the menu, so we could work something up if she'd ask nicely. However, she demanded gluten-free Greek salad with chicken. One of the cooks tried to tell her that the chicken is already in marinade that contains gluten, but she cut him off saying, "Just skip the parts with gluten." So we made her a salad, and as preparing the chicken is step 2, we skipped everything that follows. She got a bowl of lettuce. And hey, it doesn't get much healthier than a bowl of lettuce, so if you know someone who's a bit of a health nut, well then, that's a perfect option for them. Our next post is by user/Perogrammer. I'm a contractor, and I replace various dispensers in different types of buildings. No matter what the job is, I do not discard the old equipment that I take out without a $1 per unit charge. Because I have to take them to the dump, separate the materials, break down the cardboard, etc. So with every job, I ask the site lead if they want me to discard it at that cost, or if they want to take care of it themselves. If they do not pay, that equipment has nothing to do with me as soon as it's off the wall. My responsibility is to remove it, and it's their property to dispose of. Now, the care home I'm working in refused to pay the fee, but still asked me to separate and break down the cardboard. I'm nice, so I was doing that. I also organized some of the old equipment onto a pallet, and shrink-wrapped it to be easier for them to dispose of. So today, my truck is parked in the back, where they specifically told me to park it. The pallet of old equipment is in the garbage disposal area, where they specifically told me to put it. And the rest of the equipment is in a pile behind the pallet, where they specifically told me to put it. Someone in maintenance comes and asks me to move my truck, because they need to access a certain dumpster from that side. Okay, I stop working, come outside, move to the other side of the alley area. I find the maintenance lead and ask if it's okay to park there for about 20 minutes, as I'm headed to lunch soon anyway. She says that's perfect. Cool. I'm headed back inside when a man in maintenance, who heard that conversation, stops me and says the pallet is in the way of a garbage can they need. I say, "I'm sorry, but that's nothing to do with me. It's not my equipment, and I just have to put it where I'm told." He keeps insisting it needs to be moved. I'm a 110-pound woman with no super strength skills, to my knowledge, or pallet jack. So I'm not sure how he expects me to move a 600-pound pallet. And I tell him as much, and again remind him that it's not my equipment. And it's just been placed where I was instructed to place it after going out of my way to organize it for them. He says, "Don't act like you're doing us any favors." Which sounds good to me. No more favors? You got it, bro. So I go back in to finish my last bit of work, then come out to grab lunch about 15 minutes later. And the pallet has been moved directly behind my truck, blocking me in. Everyone involved knew that was my truck and knew I was headed to lunch soon. If they think I'm going to come ask them to move it, they're underestimating my ability to match their pettiness. Especially after I was told not to do any more favors. I got in my truck and backed into the pallet until I tipped it over into the mountain of discarded equipment that I hadn't palletized and went to lunch. Came back from lunch with a newfound freedom from giving a damn about whether the old equipment was the least bit organized. Before, I was neatly stacking them to the best of my ability. Now, I don't care, bro. I'm tossing this stuff wherever is easiest for me, because apparently, it's just as inconvenient for them when I organize it. And OP has kindly attached a photo for us. And keep in mind, this is only a quarter of the final amount, so I think the whole alley will be stacked by the end of this. Our next post is submitted by user/Berthole. This happened in a pub a while back. After drinking most of the night, it was time to start heading home. First, I needed to shed some extra weight. So I went to a toilet and sat down in the second booth, as the first one had a sign about a missing toilet paper dispenser. After sitting down for a while, I hear someone entering the paperless booth, while at least 2 others were vacant on my other side. I knock on the dividing wall and politely tell the guy that there is no paper in that booth. I get a snappy response of, "Shut it and mind your own goddamn business." Nice. Real nice. Anyways, I hear him starting to work with his relief, and it indeed sounded quite messy. I finished my pooperoo, and when I was washing my hands, I hear knocking from the first booth and Mr. Polite saying, "Hey, dude, pass me the toilet paper roll, yo. Come on, man. I really need some paper here, yo." After considering my options for a moment, I replied, "Shut it and mind your own goddamn business," quoting his exact words and tone. And I left him there. He can sit there waiting to get hemorrhoids for what I care while contemplating how basic manners work in a society. Oh gee, how petty I can be sometimes. Nice, my friend. Real smooth. And because you two never see each other in this whole interaction, he never even knows who betrayed him like that. Our next post is by user/VWBeds. I had to make a business trip to another city, Brighton, from my home Bristol. There aren't really any decent train connections without going via outer London, and you're talking about 4 or 5 hours train travel each way. So instead, I decide to drive, under 3 hours, and to avoid being away from the family, I got up early and left home at 5 AM. So I arrive in Brighton and need to wait on some colleagues. I know my employer will meet my costs for breakfast up to about £8, so I went to Subway and had a breakfast sub for under £3. I waited for the others, and 30 minutes later they arrived. So I offered to buy a coffee and one for myself so we can talk and plan before meeting our supplier at their offices. Fast forward and the day goes fine. I travel home the same day and come to submit my expenses for a £3 breakfast and £2 for 2 coffees, still under the £8 allowance. The finance team rejected my expenses for the coffee as, "You've already claimed for breakfast." I pointed out it was the same cafe within 30 minutes, and that if I'd bought the coffee at the same time as the sandwich, they'd approve it. What's more, as I travelled on the day of the meeting from home, I was not entitled to claim for lunch. I was told it was tough and I should stick to the expenses policy in future. Okay, I've recently returned from visiting the same supplier as before. However, this time, I left work at lunchtime the day before to avoid travelling on my own time and ensure I arrive at the hotel during my normal working day. I then had an evening meal with drinks, a nice room in a city centre hotel, a full buffet breakfast, and my parking and travel costs all covered. Since I travelled the day before, I'm entitled to claim lunch as I could not have taken a packed lunch from home. And lastly, since I arrived home after 8 PM, I claimed not only for another evening meal on the way home, but a half day of time off in lieu of the time spent travelling home. At least, I stuck to the expenses policy this time. And in his TLDR, OP sums up that cost about £400. All because the finance team didn't want to subsidise him a whole £2. And here's another short and amazing one by user/JeffNgo. I was lining up to check in for my flight to Brisbane. In front of me was an arrogant man who started yelling and swearing at the check-in lady because he had left it too late to check baggage in. She was very polite and appeared very accommodating after advising him that he was too late, which he wouldn't accept. The man eventually checked his bags in and left for the gate. I complimented the lady on how she handled the situation. She said, "Thank you for the compliment. He's going to Sydney, but his baggage is now going to Perth." And looks like this sort of stuff is a lot more common than we expect. Here are a few stories from the comments. I swear, I once checked 4 bags onto a flight from Detroit to Paris. 2 bags went to Washington, 1 to Chicago, and 1 to Denver. Oh, and the Helium Kid suggests a solution. A common problem is leaving stickers from previous flights. These have destination barcodes on them, and the baggage sorting machinery read them and send the baggage accordingly. Ooh, and here's a particularly good one by user/Canotic. In Sweden, we have a town called Vännäs. It's in the far north of Sweden, has about 4,000 people living in it, and is mostly unremarkable. A Japanese couple on their honeymoon in Stockholm wanted to book a flight to Venice. thanks to what I suspect was a strong accent and well-meaning but creative interpretation skills. On behalf of the ticket agent, they instead ended up at the aforementioned small northern town. There are not many flights to and from Venice. They don't even have their own airport, so the couple would have been stranded there overnight, or maybe even for the weekend, before there was an available flight. Luckily, when the town of Venice heard about this, they decided to be nice and gave the couple the grand suite at the hotel and a fancy dinner and all the touristy things, to keep them happy until they could get a flight to actual Venice. By all accounts, the couple really enjoyed this and everyone was happy. And with that little story, I will be finishing this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel for Reddit videos every second day. But with that said, that is it from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later, guys.